Okay, good. Let's get into it. So, what is this video about? This video is about SNAP benefits and what the actual payday will be. Now, many of you believe, based on the news and also what other influencers are telling you, that the SNAP benefits, known as food stamps, will definitively pay out on the proper days of what you would traditionally receive them. This is legally and factually incorrect. I wasn't going to do this video because, to be honest with you, some of you are going to be really mean to me when I outline this stuff. And I thought, you know what? Screw it, just let it roll. But after watching a couple of the more big name influencers related to food stamps, I sadly, as an attorney, need to step in and kind of correct what the record is so that people understand what's actually going to happen. I understand that a lot of the influencers are not attorneys. I get that they're not going to know this stuff anyways, but I feel like you should know it because you're going to be really let down if you're going based off of what they're saying. So, as a result of that, I'm making this video. Please remember, I'm not promoting identity or issue analysis or positive things for or negative things for the left or the right. This is not a video for Democrats or Republicans. It's a video for everybody. The point of this video is to specifically outline when you are likely to receive food stamps going forward. I understand that some of you need food stamps. I fully get it. I get that you have children who need food stamps. I fully get it. That's why I'm doing this video literally at 1:38 a.m. tonight. Okay, I should be asleep right now. Let's get into it real quick. On October 31st, basically, hours ago, there were two federal judges that essentially made rulings as a response to the situation where the Trump administration stated, hey, we don't believe these contingency funds should be used, as the appropriations clause would restrict their use to pay benefits. People were pissed. So many people were pissed that basically there were 25 Democratic-led states in the District of Columbia that said, hey, we're going to sue you, Trump administration, because we believe that food stamps need to be paid. Those were Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin, plus, of course, the DC area. Why did this happen? Well, these 25 Democrat-led states, plus the District of Columbia, basically said that the Trump administration was wrong because these contingency funds that are held in reserve are supposed to be used for an emergency. The Trump administration countered and said this was not an uncontrollable emergency. This was a controlled emergency. As you know, they voted on opening the government 14 plus times at this point. There's smaller votes, bigger votes, etc. But both sides, they're stuck in the spot that they're stuck. They are deep-seated about getting their way when it comes to reopening the government. Now, traditionally, the Republicans lean in the direction that they want to shrink how much the government interacts with daily activities in most Americans' lives. And that's, makes sense for the Republican side. And on the Democratic side, they want to increase the influence the government has in people's lives. Republicans don't like that because it is a direct result of a reduction of freedom. And as you know, most people don't even know what freedom actually is. Freedom is what billionaires usually have. It's the ability to go into the middle of a 50,000 acre ranch and live as you would with all things given to you. That is the ultimate version of freedom because you can essentially do what you want. What we have, the working class, what we have, the disabled, what we have, the retired, what we have, what food stamp recipients go ahead and have, is like the little knockoff version of that. We think of freedom more as the right to say what we want. We think of freedom as the right to basically go places that are open to the general public. The right to go ahead and, click on things on the computer and see certain things. Okay? We get the knockoff version of freedom. Now, as a result of all this, I need you to understand, I think the Democrats legally are correct with this situation. And the situation is that basically the Trump administration is arguing that this shutdown is not an uncontrolled catastrophe. And therefore, as a result, these funds, contingency funds, held aside funds from 2024 and 2025, cannot be used to pay food stamps. Now, two judges have created orders demanding that the payment of these partial food stamp payments be made. Now, you may be saying, hey, wait a minute, some of these payments have to be made November 1st. Well, today is November 1st. And unfortunately, it is a situation where legally there's a potential problem. Why? Donald Trump and his administration reserve the right in some of these situations to appeal. Okay, so legally you need to understand some basic things, because remember, there's lots of judges having to do with this lawsuit. It's not just the two, there's more than that. Judges can do a temporary restraining order, a TRO. That's where it basically is a temporary order saying this group has to stay away from doing something or stop doing something. Or judges could do what's called a preliminary injunction. That's where a court will block an action from actually occurring, right? So you can't start that. You can't open that. You can't launch that product. Then you have a permanent injunction. These usually come at the end. The preliminary injunctions usually come at the beginning of a lawsuit. A permanent injunction is basically a final count, a final order, a final dictation that they have to do something, that something must be done. Then you have what's called a declaratory judgment. That's basically where it's more of like it declares what the rights and obligations and duties of the parties are going to be going forward. It's more like it's less of a real direct, you must do this. It's more of like remember, everybody, you have to be able to do these things and you're required to do these things, right? It's more of an overview type of injunction, or rather judgment. Then you have basically a vacate of a particular item, where a judge will say, okay, look, I'm going to vacate the prior decision. I'm going to reassess this, with new eyes and new ears. Okay. Then the judges also have options where they can do, for example, things like a writ of mandamus, 28 U.S.C. section 1361, which is basically where, these judges could try and force the Secretary Rollins to release funds to pay these benefits. You could also have a judge do a compel of unlawfully withheld action, which is APA section 706 subsection 1, which is where it's a pay now order that could be essentially pushed and released and required. They had one of those in 2020 with the USDA. That was the case law. My point to you is this: these judges are it's not meant as a negative thing, are lower level judges. District court judges, district court, circuit court, Supreme Court of the United States. So Trump reserves the right to appeal what's going on in this situation. Now, I did have somebody connected to politics reach out to me about where Trump is at with this situation, because I asked, okay? And what I was told, although I can't definitive, because, who can say what Trump is actually thinking other than his 2 a.m. tweets? Nobody knows. Okay. Do we call them tweets anymore? What do we call those anyway? What's the name of those now? So the point I'm getting at is, what I'm hearing about Trump is that he fully wants to pay essentially food stamps. He wants to do it legally, and he wants his team to come up with a way to legally pay them out. Now, does that mean you are going to receive food stamps on the day that you traditionally receive them? The correct answer is maybe. Let me go through the judge's rulings. Let me go through essentially what's happening per each state so that you have an understanding of where you live and what to expect. First judge's ruling, okay? This is Judge John J. McConnell Jr.'s ruling from Rhode Island, an Obama appointee. Basically, district court, so remember, lower level, judge here, issued an order requiring the USDA to immediately use the $5.25 billion contingency fund money to partially fund SNAP benefits starting November 1st. Now, obviously, the money, when they do the math, is changing. Originally, they said they had $6 billion, but it takes money to administer the benefits. Now they're saying they've got about 5.25 billion. Originally, they said it would take about 8 billion a month. Then it went to 8.5 billion. Now it's at around 9 billion. I always love how the politicians, it magically grows in numbers and the cost becomes an extremely large one, because remember, each billion has a hell of a lot of millions in it. Just so you're aware. So anyways, the judge basically, quote, stated this, Judge McConnell, quote, SNAP benefits have never until now been terminated. And the United States has in fact admitted that the contingency funds are appropriately used during a shutdown, and that did occur in 2019. And this therefore rejects the overall Trump administration's narrow interpretation of the fund's purpose, where they try to create precedent. Now, look, I've read through the different rules related to this. You go back to 2015, right? They basically paid them out when there was a problem. Even though there was a problem, they still paid them. When it came to 2018, 2019, when Trump was in office and the government shut down, they still paid the benefits. So consistently throughout history, they've always paid the benefits, whether it was a controllable emergency where Schumer and Trump were in a pissing match, or an uncontrollable emergency like a hurricane, hits some data center and messes up the payments. Okay. Now, what do you need to know about this? He did not, Judge John J. McConnell Jr., District Court Judge, Rhode Island, he did not require that basically Section 32 funds, which comes from customs, be used to make up the difference. Okay? McConnell said, hey, this has to be done timely or as soon as possible. There is no timely way to do this because some states are paying food stamps on the 1st, which means there's no timely way to make this all come together. All right, so what do you need to know? Basically, at the end of the day, the Trump administration needs to figure out whether it wants to deny access to these funds and appeal upwards. It is my belief that this would be a terrible political move for Trump. An absolutely horrible political move for Trump. Why? Yes, Trump does not have most voters that are on food stamps. Food stamp voters love government influence because government influence means benefits to be received. Social Security benefits, for the most part, are different. Retirement, Social Security disability, Medicare are paid for by the people. That's why we have FICA taxes and SECA taxes. However, supplemental security income is paid from general taxes. Food stamps has its own funding system. However, and I need to be very clear about this, it is not funded like retirement benefits. Okay? So people actually have a lesser right to food stamps than they do to retirement benefits. Now, why is this important? It's important because at the end of the day, Trump is not going to lose a lot of sleep over losing potential voters who are food stamp recipients. They're not Republicans. They're not into capitalism. They're not into making as much as they can to impress some person that they are worth their time. They're not looking for a trophy spouse. They're not looking for a helicopter. They're looking to get as much money as they can to raise the children that they have, or to be basically whoever they are. Do I believe Trump is going to drastically review and in some cases reduce food stamps specifically for categories of able-bodied individuals beyond the big, beautiful bill's already big reach? Yes, absolutely. It is almost certain that Trump will, as people are putting it, doge food stamps. It's extremely likely. Trump is very likely to doge food stamps and doge disability benefits and doge widows benefits, survivors benefits, disabled adult child benefits, supplemental security income benefits. That's going to be a big one, a huge one, especially with the entrants who are basically those who are refugees, asylum seekers, and trafficked. Because we all know there was a lot of funny business going on during the Biden administration with immigration. Also, VA benefits very likely to be doged. There's a lot of veterans running around that are doing very well, doing a lot of activities that, traditionally their paperwork said they would not be able to do. And they're, working side jobs in this job. And I understand the difference between TDIU and I understand the difference between PNT. I get it, but that is likely to be doged as well. Now, there was another judge. This other judge is Judge Indira Talwani's ruling, Massachusetts. Again, a district court level judge, an appealable judge, district, circuit, Supreme Court, low-level judge, district judge. Not a mean thing to say. A highly respectable, highly accomplished individual, but a low federal district court judge. Okay, they're not justices. U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani was also an Obama appointee. And this is what Trump gets into. Trump is always making the argument that there's super liberal judges, or they basically, pick which particular jurisdiction, which court that they're going to want to go ahead and, be placed in, yada, yada, yada. Yes, there's abuse of the legal system. Yes, the judicial system is not, unfortunately, nowadays, blind when it comes to justice. It is making rules that are very good and also atrocious. We are seeing, unfortunately, criminals being released who should be going to jail for the rest of their life because some judges are there to go ahead and push an agenda. I see this as an attorney because I read the releases from these courts and the cases that are basically created with the facts and the details, something that you don't get to access because a lot of you watch the legacy news channels. And the reality is, if you had access to the court case facts, you'd have a very different outlook on how everything actually works. Let's go through it. Judge Indira Talwani's ruling, Massachusetts District Court Judge. On October 31st, yesterday, hours ago, she issued a written order indicating that the administration's halt of the SNAP benefits likely to be unlawful. Suggested she would block the termination. Remember how we went through types of things that judges can do? They can do a temporary restraining order, preliminary injunction, permanent injunction, declaratory injunction. They can vacate a decision, although that's not going to happen so much at the district court. They can also do basically writ of mandamus, compel unlawfully withheld action. They can order certain things. They can do these types of things. So on October 31st, she issued a written order indicating that the administration's halt of the SNAP benefits likely unlawful. She gave the government until Monday. I know what you're thinking. SNAP benefits have to be paid out on the 1st for some people. Let me clarify. She gave the government until Monday, November 3rd, 2025, to explain how it plans to basically go ahead and use the contingency funds, and also whether it will tap Section 32 funds to achieve the full amount of food stamps to be paid out. Now, to be very clear, and I think this is important, okay? There are other judges involved. No, I do not believe that food stamps are going to pay out perfectly on time for everybody. First off, you have to get through whether or not President Trump will appeal these decisions and these orders and seek his own fighting battles when it comes to this whole situation. I don't know what Trump's going to do, but I got to be honest with you. It would just be easier for them to pay the food stamps. Nobody wants to see rioting. Nobody wants to see people on food stamps going hungry. Nobody wants to see crime, especially Trump, when it comes from low income individuals or no income individuals, then causing crime against the middle class. Because remember, to the Republican side, the middle class represents income earned, taxable income, taxes paid, and bottom line, then the government can borrow against those who are working. The government borrows money against your work product if you're working. A lot of you don't know that, but the government mostly owes money to the American people. Not China, not Japan, not Ireland, okay? Now, we're going to go through each state and specifically outline when they traditionally pay out. And I'm going to do this quickly because I don't want to spend too much time on it. So we're going through each state of when they normally pay out. But remember this first. This is crucial. Because we have 2 district court judges ruling that they should be paying out benefits, but they haven't figured out if the benefits can be fully paid out because the contingency funds at $5.25 billion are not enough. They need almost double that. So your brain should be thinking, okay, I know I'm going to get potentially a little over half if Trump's administration doesn't appeal one of these decisions. Also, to be very fair, there is no way for them to magically send up the requests for funds, figure out all the reduced math, and then pay out the benefits all tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. Also, tomorrow is hours after these judges made their rulings. Well, it's hours and hours, but it's within a 24-hour period that they have to then start ramping this up. So the bottom line is, if you are expecting a payment on the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, somewhere in that period, we're going to see action related to this. But you should not expect to receive food stamps right up and early with the 1st. Potentially, I would say the 4th or the 5th is when you could expect an actual payment to occur. Now, let's go through it. Alabama, you could receive it between the 4th and the 23rd. Alaska, the 1st only. Arizona, the 1st through the 13th. Arkansas, the 4th through the 13th. California, the 1st through the 10th. Colorado, the 1st through the 10th. Connecticut is spaced through the 1st through the 3rd. Delaware, 2nd through the 23rd. District of Columbia, 1st through the 10th. Florida, 1st through the 28th. Georgia, 5th through the 23rd. Hawaii, 3rd through the 5th. Idaho, 1st through the 10th. Illinois, 1st through the 10th. Indiana, 5th through the 23rd. Iowa, 1st through the 10th. Kansas, 1st through the 10th. Kentucky, 1st through the 19th. Louisiana, 1st through the 23rd. Maine, 10th through the 14th. Maryland, 4th through the 23rd. Massachusetts, 1st through the 14th. Michigan, 3rd through the 21st. Minnesota, 4th through the 13th. Mississippi, 4th through the 21st. Missouri, 1st through the 22nd. Montana, 2nd through the 6th. Nebraska, 1st through the 5th. Nevada, 1st through the 10th. New Hampshire, 5th only. New Jersey, 1st through the 5th day. New Mexico, 1st through the 20th day. New York varies. It's all over because of regional differences and varies. It's a whole thing. North Carolina, and North Carolina goes by Social Security's last digit. 3rd through the 21st day. North Dakota, 1st only. All recipients. Ohio, case number last digit. So 2nd through the 20th. Oklahoma, 1st through the 10th. Oregon, 1st through the 9th. Pennsylvania, first 10 business days. Rhode Island, 1st only. South Carolina, 1st through the 10th. South Dakota, 10th day only. Tennessee, 1st through the 20th. That's based on the last 2 digits of your Social Security number. Texas, 1st through the 28th. Utah, the 5th, the 11th, or the 15th. Vermont, 1st only. Virginia, the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, or the 9th. Washington, the 1st through the 10th. West Virginia, 1st through the 9th. Wisconsin, 1st through the 15th. Wyoming, 1st through the 4th. Now, before I tell you what's likely to happen with those states who have ramped up and prepared themselves at the state level to pay your SNAP benefits, before I tell you about that, I need you to basically understand some basic things with this. Actually, before we do that, one moment, I need you to understand I don't do Medicare stuff. Medicare is not my thing. So if you have Medicare questions, go ahead and give a call to Chapter. I don't do Medicare questions. I'm not about Medicare. I'm America's most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on Social Security disability attorney. So if you need disability benefits, you can always reach out to me. But for Medicare questions, 339-226-6287, 339-226-6287. They'll be able to help you with things that are going on related to the mass fraud that they've been discovering in the Medicare arena, which is larger than any other Social Security category of fraud by billions. So doctors are being arrested, back offices are being arrested. It's a real massive thing. Now, with that said, some states have agreed to go ahead and fund, essentially, right, food stamps to some degree. And there were basically some categories that this all fell into. Some states were going to fund food stamps partially or entirely. Some states were going to go ahead and get the military to go ahead and drive food stamps or drive food to different areas and set up temporary food pantries. Some states were going to go and hyperfund food pantries, second harvest groups, Samaritan Resource Center groups and stuff like that to make sure they had enough money to go buy food to have it for people who needed it. Some states were basically doing different variations of things where they were trying to make sure that people had food delivered directly to their house. These are the types of things that basically were being used throughout this process, okay? Now, at the end of the day, and I think this is important, you have to kind of understand that these states may withdraw actually paying out these funds when they said they would, because they know now that the judges are leaning in their favor. As a result of that, it looks like at this point, very few people will receive their food stamps on time if the food stamps are required to be paid before essentially the 4th. So day 1, day 2, day 3 of November, you're probably going to be seeing some issues there. Will you ultimately receive your food stamps? Maybe. I believe it is Trump's intent currently because of what I was told. And I'm just going to say they're an anonymous source. They're a buddy of mine. They interact with the Republican Party, and sometimes they give me a heads up. But what I've been told is that Trump does want to process the food stamps. He wants his team to go ahead and figure out a plan and then get them paid. Now, some of you will say that that's impossible because he's literally getting sued by 25 states plus DC, where the White House is, as a result of not paying out food stamps. We're going to have to see. I do not know exactly what's going to happen with it. Nobody does. Okay. So at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and just explain legally what's likely to happen. 2 judges have ruled. Appeals could be filed. Arguments could be made with this entire situation that could change everything. I don't think you should expect full food stamps to be paid out immediately on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. However, I do believe food stamps will ultimately be paid out in total during November. Some of your states do require that food stamps be paid out, whether it's your case number or your social, or basically something to do with when you were born or whatever, where they're requiring that you be paid on certain days. It is my belief that because the government is also closed, that the groups that interact, and remember, there's federal and state groups, with paying out food stamps are right now understaffed. So if there were a crisis, for example, where food stamps need to be paid out, but they had to figure out new calculations of the amounts and basically figure out essentially what days they're going to be now paying it out. They don't have the staff to calculate it all. They don't. The entire massive program is over 40 million recipients, which is shameful. It should know our country, what we consider to be the greatest country on planet Earth, should not have that many impoverished people. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. Now, as a result of all the things that we've covered, I want you to understand that nobody knows exactly what's going on. I decided to do this video because at the end of the day, I felt that it was important for you to understand what is legally likely to happen. Some of you still don't understand your rights related to food stamps. It is what we call a statutory benefit. It is not what we call a constitutional right. It was created and governed by a federal statute, Food and Nutrition Act of 2008, and then administered by the states under the USDA's oversight. The federal government and the states split the cost of administering it, and then the feds pay basically the food stamps. Congress can change food stamps at any time. They can modify it, they can reduce it, they can eliminate the entire program if they wanted to. They reserve that right. Now, some of you will say, why did we put the government in charge of our food stamps for the people who need food? I don't know. I don't know why the hell you guys would do that. So you did it with insurance too. You did it with health insurance. You could have just had the government control more aggressively what the insurance companies were doing and force their industries to be less profitable and then basically create a better situation for people. But instead, the government took it over. Terrible idea. creating a food stamp program that the government has to completely take over instead of regulating companies, pushing them and beating them up to do a better job for cheaper. It's not a winning model. It's never been a winning model. Social Security benefits, once again, for retirement, disability, things like that. We're looking at a trust fund problem where around 2032, 2033, realistically, the benefits in the trust fund for retirement benefits under Title II are going to run dry, which means everybody gets like a 20% reduction. It's a 20% plus reduction in their retirement check. The next person who is the president of the United States will likely be dealing with all retired people getting around 20% less in their retirement check, which mathematically, if you do some rough cut math, right now what your check is about what it's going to be around 9-ish years from now. Could be 8-ish years from now. Like that's what we're talking about here. Obviously, you can't afford the things you used to afford. Bidenomics was not a good thing for the disabled, not a good thing for the retired. That is a fact. That is a clear as crystal fact. Also, food stamps, very important, okay? Your eligibility is never guaranteed. It is conditional. It is contingent upon certain things coming into existence. For example, they have income restrictions, citizenship restrictions, immigration restrictions, work restrictions, asset restrictions, resource restrictions. You are not definitively promised to have this. Court precedents have also basically come to a bottom line on this. Lying v. Castillo, 1986. Basically, the Supreme Court ruled that the food stamp eligibility rules did not violate due process or equal protection. So they can create and make more restrictions and more modifications. Atkins v. Parker, basically, they don't need to give you a hearing to go ahead and remove your food stamps. What this means is that you do not have a property right to the removal of your property because food stamps are not a property you own. Now, I want to do one final thing that I think is important, okay? I understand that there are a lot of people watching YouTube videos, shorts, Facebook shorts, Instagram shorts, X shorts, where they're seeing individuals who are screaming into a camera stating that the working class has to pay for their 5 children, 6 children, 8 children, 10 children, whatever. Some of these videos are created by AI, and some of them are real people. What's happening is America's ability to pay for itself is very quickly spiraling out of control. Now let's look it up right now. What is the US debt today? What is the US debt today? Okay. So we're at 38 trillion, 38.08. It's actually a little bit higher than that right now. So let's just say 38.1 trillion in debt. Okay. We, to some degree, might have the capacity to pay it off in different ways. You know, we could put more taxes on, certain things that people really love. But at the end of the day, the working class, the middle class can't afford to fix this problem. The super rich, even if you took all their money, could not fix this problem. So taxing the middle class more isn't going to get you where you need to be. Nobody is going to say that America has to pay off this $1 trillion massive debt immediately because we're America. We got F-35s, we got F-22s. We got more big things that go boom than anybody else. Well, technically not anymore, but who really knows the stats on those? So my point to you is this. America has a problem where it can't afford to go ahead and do what it used to do. Sure, it could afford to give Medicare to everybody. Sure, it could afford to give a version of universal benefits, an upgrade to SNAP to every single citizen. It could afford it. It actually could. It just chooses not to because it's reached all these foreign countries to try and make these foreign countries do trade using our currency as a reserve currency for international agreements. That's the main focus of the US. Why? A lot of you don't realize how economics works, but if the US has a lot of countries that choose, which they're having right now, to not use the US dollar, it will create a massive financial collapse. Gas prices will be $10, $15, $20, and the money we use will largely devalue in an immediate sense. So, at the end of the day, what you have to remember is that we hope that America can keep other countries using its currency. We hope that Trump can figure out a way to go ahead and get the other countries to sign international agreements for better trade for the United States. He's doing a lot of that. But let me tell you this, okay? When I saw the meeting between the president of the United States and the president of China, it's very clear that the United States is not the ultimate power broker in US currency or currencies anymore. So with that said, all of this hangs in the balance of whether or not you get food stamps, our control of the reserve currency of international trade, the reserve funds that exist versus essentially the additional funds that they'll need to go and collect to pay out everybody the total amount that they would need. For this reason, and because it is Saturday, very early, do not expect to get food stamps if you traditionally get food stamps on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd. You might get a partial payment. If the government is able to convince all of those people at those government positions to work over the weekends, which, to be honest with you, I doubt they will. I doubt they will, because, look at how things are right now. The government job, like a federal government job, used to be like the safest thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's like they talked about the golden handcuffs. You were stuck in the job because the benefits you receive once you hit that certain amount of time, you were stuck there. They were just too good. Your pensions were too good to leave. It's not that way anymore. So do I see these, employees of the federal government, state governments coming in on Saturday? Unlikely. Do I see them figuring out on Saturday, tomorrow, how to pay everybody's food stamps by, doing a partial payment and then reconfiguring the day that they're supposed to receive them? Unlikely. There's 40 plus million people receiving them. That's a big accounting situation. That's not a small detail. With that said, YYZZ, thank you for the $4.99 donation. I super appreciate that. Mahalo for all you do, your knowledge, time, and delivery. I super appreciate that. I really do, because it is really, really late Friday night. Also, happy Halloween to all the people who partook in the Halloween festivities. Now, with that said, final thoughts. It would be a bad political choice for Trump to not find a way to get food stampers fed. I do see this thing dragging off and then finally getting resolved probably around the 10th of November. Trump does not want what I call food stampers. Some people are offended by that. So the recipients of food stamps, it's just a long phrase to say food stampers. Trump doesn't want the food stampers to get criminally active with injuring the middle class, because the middle class is what voted for Trump. So as a result of that, it's a very dangerous game that these politicians are playing. And to be fair, some of the things the Democrats want, we should do, because there's poor people who can't afford their health insurance. Some of the things the Democrats want, I would never have even passed in the first place. I after reading through them, I'm disgusted and ashamed. So to be fair, we're stuck in a stalemate right now. I don't know when it'll be fixed, but I do believe if those food stamps are not paid out in their full amount as quickly as possible, it will ramp up the time it takes for them to go ahead and speed up reopening the government, because things are going to get hostile and violent. There's no way around it. They're just going to get violent. Okay. Yeah, and let me put something in your head real quick. Grocery stores across the entire United States, New York to California, are mass hiring and employing for tomorrow personnel to do security. We all know why that is, and it makes sense, but that's what's going on. With that said, Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to disability attorney in America. Please remember to like and subscribe. I didn't go live yesterday because I fell asleep while I was working. And I was supposed to go live and answer questions for free. I will try to do that over the weekend. We will be doing more Social Security videos as well. With that said, please remember, I do those little 30-minute or 1-hour private sessions. So if you need one of those, mini contract is below. I will catch you all later. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much. And also, Ernie Terrell, thank you for the $20 donation. Big heart to you. I super appreciate it. I will catch you all a little bit later. Please have a wonderful night. Again, Ernie, thank you. And I'm really excited to show you the future studio stuff that we're doing for halftime shows, musicians, all kinds of stuff, talented people. So I'll catch you a little bit later. We'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.